My banking career started 23 years ago, where I headed multiple departments from risk to commercial lending with 4 major Lebanese banks. Moving to Cedrus Bank was a decision based on too many things. Allow me please to name few. Cedrus Bank is the fastest growing banking group and a major player in the Lebanese market sector today. Our capital adequacy ratio stands at around 40%, which indicates how solid our equity is. We have a capital dedicated for commercial lending, which will allow us to grow organically. We are also looking to acquire another bank. We continue to invest in the learning and development of our Cedrus family. This is why our human capital plays a fundamental role in our success. The majority of the key people have local and international experience. Cedrus Bank has always armed itself with the right tools, the innovative systems and procedures. This allowed us to grow rapidly and with confidence.
Thank you.
I'm going to let every person now introduce himself. I'm going to start with Mr. Karim Khalifa, who is managing partner of Y2 Consultant. Please, Karim.
My name is Karim Khalifa. I'm the managing partner of Y2 Consulting. It's a new base that we've set in Beirut, and we are actively working on promoting the Lebanese African business relationship. We believe Africa is a future continent and future market for Lebanese investor. And we are looking to be an added value and a bridge for the Lebanese investor producers who are willing to grow and penetrate the African market. When I say Africa here, I mean more the North Africa, West Africa, East Africa. The South Africa is out of our geographical zone for the time being.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Karim. We have also with us an important member of our Lebanese diaspora, Dr. Christian Abouelhaf, who is leading the international cooperation at the African Export-Import Bank, Afrexim Bank.
Merci, Marwan. Good morning, everyone. My name is Christian Abouelhaf. As Marwan is saying, I'm a Lebanese in Diaspora again, and I was invited here to come and as a Lebanese diaspora, but I said no. I think I should be value added to my people. So that's why I'm here today, just to introduce, what I'm doing and how can I help, the Lebanese to come into Africa. I'm just leading the international cooperation in my institution. My institution is the African Export-Import Bank that has been created in the year 1995. And the ultimate, and objective, and mission of this bank is to promote intra and extra-African trade through the collaboration of everyone, including, international institutions, financial institutions, capacity building, and so forth. So we are doing very good programs, and I'm here today just to invite, to introduce first, my institution as an institution to help the Lebanese go into Africa with all the comfort, and maybe down the road, give you more details on that one. Also, I had a long experience and I was actually a pioneer staff in this place. I assisted in the creation of this institution 25 years ago. So thank you for receiving me, and looking forward for additional discussion. Thank you, Marwan.
Thank you, Doctor. We have also with us Mr. Adel Afyouni, who is the head of Emerging Market Client Group, EMEA at Credit Suisse. Please, Adel.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Adel Afyouni. I live in London. I've been there for the last 21 years. I'm an investment banker at Credit Suisse, where I manage emerging markets coverage, so all the client base in emerging markets on the investment banking side. Have been involved a lot as part of my job in the Middle East and in Lebanon. Therefore, very happy to be here to share some of my thoughts about the Lebanese economy and how the diaspora can play how the diaspora has always been very important for the Lebanese economy, but also going forward and looking forward how we can play an even more crucial role in the revival of the economy. Separately from my role at Credit Suisse, I'm a board member and a founder a founding member of an organization called LIFE, Lebanese International Finance Executives, which basically is a global organization that groups all Lebanese across the world who work in the financial sector. We've been established for 7 or 8 years now. We have chapters across the globe, in Latin America, in the US, in Europe, Paris, London, Geneva, in the Middle East, obviously in Asia. So we're very present on a number of activities. Some of them is supporting the Lebanese youth through scholarships to go and travel and study abroad. Some of our activities are about networking and creating a strong link between all Lebanese in finance across the globe. And one of our major activities as well is to actually promote economic activity in Lebanon and support the business and the financial community in Lebanon and the entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Adil.
Thank you.
Sorry, أنا عم بحكي بالإنجليزي، فينا نحكي بالعربي، فينا نحكي بالفرنساوي. Feel free, please, to. We will have with us Mr. Roman Mathieu also, who is CEO of Euromina Capital, managing money funds, foreign and local, that invested in Lebanon and in the region. Roman مأخر شوي، عنده important meeting، بتأمل يجي يحضر معنا لأنه مستفيد كثير من خبرته. Last but not least, Dr. Fawzi Zmkhol, a well-established Lebanese investor, President of the Association of the Lebanese Business People in the World.
Hello everyone, my name is Fawzi Zmkhol. I'm honored and proud to chair the Lebanese Business Person Association in the world that group more than 30,000 CEOs, Lebanese CEOs in the world. I've been chairing the association since 1 year and a half. I'm the CEO of industrial company, Lebanese based and in the regional market. I'm the CEO of a Lebanese African company that is based in Ivory Coast that work in food and beverage. And I'm a board member of several financial institutions in Lebanon and the Middle East. I'm also a managerial professor at St. Joseph University and Lebanese American University, where I share as well the board. I'm very happy to be here and to share and to discuss together. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. رح أغير شوي بالدسكشن. أنا كنت تارك دكتور زمكحل للآخر لنستفيد من خبرته. بضطر يفل بكير. عندي سؤال لك دكتور، بهمني أنت تجاوبني عليه. Many Lebanese have succeeded independently in Lebanon and in the world. What, in your opinion, can be done to succeed collectively?
You have asked me the question in Arabic or in English, so shall I continue in English or we move to Arabic?
Whatever you prefer.
We keep in English? Okay, so you know that's the $100 million question. What are the main point of strengths of the Lebanese? You know, I'll talk about it positively and I will have to talk about us negatively. Positively, I think that all of us, we have in our genes this entrepreneurship mind, this communication things, this development of creativity. I was in a conference in the States and I was introduced the way the chairman introduced me, and someone stood up and he told me, "Wow, you're Lebanese." So I was expecting, of course, like a slap, and then he said, "Wow, you're so lucky to be the Lebanese." And that's the first time somebody is telling me that I'm lucky to be Lebanese. And I said, "Why am I lucky to be Lebanese?" And he said, "Because you are the best in mastering the C and C." So when he said C and C, my mind took me to corruptions and everything that goes on. So I was starting to prepare my answer. Then I told him, "What are C and C's?" And he said in front of everyone, said, "You are the best in mastering communication and connections." And this struck in my mind, and I kept it, and I always try to stress on that. And this is true. As Lebanese, we are born as excellent communicator. You take a taxi from the airport, the guys know how to say 2 words in English, hello and how are you, and he can try to speak in English while driving you to the airport. You go to anyone that speaks 3 words of French, and he can try to discuss with any French person in a discussion, and he can get 25% of that. This means, yes, we are a very good communicator. Yes, we can pass a message through. Yes, we can be listened. And when we talk about connections, on the bad side, the connection is what is called in Lebanon the wasta. You know someone, this person can open you some doors in a negative way. However, the wasta in the Lebanese sense, specifically when we are in LDE conference, can be looked at very positively. The wasta means that wherever we go in the world, which is sure, we will always find a Lebanese person sitting next in the room. In any restaurant, in any meeting, in any country, in any island that we go, we will find a Lebanese. So how can we use these two C's specifically to build synergies? If I move to the negative side, we look at Lebanese all over the world, we see that most of them have succeeded. But if you go into the roots, you will find out that they all started from zero. They all started from scratch. And they moved from 0 to 1, and there's a famous quote on that, how to move from 0 to 1. This means that we are entrepreneurs in the mind, but at the same time, we succeed individually. We don't know how to succeed in the groups. So if you want to destroy a Lebanese, you put a Lebanese in front of him. And if you want to make sure that they will go into a battle, you put a chair in the middle, and that's a chaos for sure. So yes, we have succeeded individually. Yes, we have built extraordinary companies in all fields all over the world, in the medical field, financials, industrial, commercials. Telecom. However, telecom, yes, I mean, I can name it, all of it. However, the world is moving. And if I have to look in a very objective way, I think that today the economic world is completely shifting. The point of strength of our people, of our companies, are evolving and are even being transformed in point of weaknesses. Wherever we are in the world, in Lebanon, in the Middle East, in Latin America, in any continent, believe me, and I'm sure that you live that, we have to do 10 times, not to say 20 times more efforts to gain 10 times less of what we used to be. However, in this crisis, this means we have new opportunities, we have new challenges, but we have at the same time new risks. In order to face that, we can't anymore succeed individually, nor as company, nor as people. And in case we go into the same strategy, we will see that we'll be moving back and backwards. And I will give you a very simple example. We have invested in Africa lately, and we saw that in the Lebanese market, I mean, the Lebanese, based on the African authority, hold more than 38% of the GDP in the African countries. But they're facing now a huge competition. There's the Chinese going on, there's the Moroccan going on, there's most of the South and North African country goes. However, these companies are coming as groups. They're not coming alone. You have groups and big holdings that are coming to face us. This means in order to face the new competition that's coming in the Arab world or even in Africa, we can't but to do synergies. We can't but do cooperation. And when I say cooperation, this doesn't mean that we have to be dependent. We can be interdependent. This means these are exactly the cooperation agreement we are looking for. As a Lebanese company based in Lebanon, believe me, we won't all want to invest outside the countries. But now we know by investing outside the country, it's extremely difficult to start from scratch. This means we want to invest through existing company into the equity of existing company. This will help us develop. At the same time, we can invest funds into companies that have a history. And this is exactly applicable for Lebanese company based in Lebanon. Having a new, I mean, everybody's discussing about investment and we want to attract investment, but at the same time, you have to be realistic. Do we expect that we have investors that will come to Lebanon and invest from zero? This is quite impossible, because we know that we have a legal system that's quite difficult. We know that we have a very difficult system in Lebanon, an economic system. We know that we have fierce competition. So starting from zero, whoever you are, even multinationals can escape from that. So we have excellent company in Lebanon. We have companies that have a good corporate governance, that have good development issue, that are ready to attract equity. So what we need today is to move part of the debt to the equity and to open the market. And you have 68% of the Lebanese companies that are family-owned. This family-owned company have to open their equity. And to tell you why they are forced to do that is because we have a very high private debt. You know that everyone is discussing about the public debt. Yes, the public debt have reached 80 billions, and this is a big headache. I will not go into that. However, I want to tell you that our private debt have reached 55 billion. Which is 110% of the GDP. This means that everyone have used his asset to take loans. You know that the banks will never give you loans without guarantee, which is very normal. This means that there is no any more assets to be used to increase the loan and to develop, which is positive in the view where the company are forced today to move part of the debt into equity and to attract investment. So as a conference like LDE is extremely important, but to make it productive, this means that we have to find a way where we will invest in those companies that are Lebanese based all over the world, because we have no other way to develop. But at the same time, in case we want to develop as a Lebanese company in Lebanon, we have to open our equity, have an excellent corporate governance, and have companies who will come and invest within the company. That's what I call today the synergy, but the forced synergy, because unfortunately, if you don't do that, we will not be able to move forwards. And I end up, if you give me 3 minutes, about the entrepreneurial mind of the Lebanese. You know, the central bank and the government have opened the 331 circular, the accelerator initiatives, so many things to boost entrepreneurship. Wherever I go now, the flavor of the day is startup entrepreneurship. I love that. I do encourage that. It's why I teach in university and I teach entrepreneurship, because I think that we can take the best ideas from entrepreneurs. But at the same time, we have to be realistic. Entrepreneurship and startup is not just an idea. It's not just having like the brilliant idea, the innovation thing, and it stops here. Entrepreneurship means having a company, building a history, starting to move, and being an entrepreneur within existing company. No one ever said that we need 7 billion company in the world. We can have excellent SMEs. We do have good large companies, and we need entrepreneurs within these companies. And that's a message to the youth, that you can be an excellent entrepreneur, you can be independent, you can sell your idea and being within existing company. This is the easiest way to move and evolve. And today the company are not recruiting because they don't want anymore people to fill places, but they want people where they can learn from them. And I tell you that today most Lebanese company or Lebanese-based company are looking for entrepreneurs, are looking for entrepreneurial mind within their company to come and develop their sources and specifically to diversify. And this is where I conclude with a 3D strategy that I can propose you as Lebanese-based or Lebanese origin. The first D where we have to move today is to develop. We can't anymore live while being stuck where we are. If we don't develop our products, our people, our state of mind, our technology, unfortunately we'll be moving forward, backward. The second one, which is extremely important, to diversify. You have noticed that the most companies in the world that have moved forward are those companies who have diversified their product. You know that you can meet companies that start doing dishwasher and finalize doing cars. Finally, diversification is something that we have. And again, as Lebanese, we know how to sell anything. So let's use that and start diversifying. And my third D will be to delegate. And delegate brings me to the human resources where we can't anymore. We have to delegate what made us today here and focus on what are our point of strengths, which is the communication and the connection. I truly believe that we have this power in our genes. We are known and we will keep our reputation of being the best business person in the world. But again, we can but to work in groups and to work together into different continents, in your countries, in ours, but this is the only way out to face this new change of economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Zmekhoul. كنت رح أترك الأسئلة للآخر، بس بما إنه دكتور زمكحول وقته ضيق بقى رح أسمح هلا إذا حدا عنده سؤال بحب يسأل دكتور زمكحول تا يستفيد من خبرته، تا فينا نسأل سؤالات هلا. And by the way, أنا عندي سؤال. Do you think that Lebanese regulations are ready for equity raising in Lebanon?
You know, I love this question, because in case you have asked me this question 2 weeks ago, I would say no, because unfortunately we have proposed a lot of laws to evolve our system into the last parliament, and unfortunately we have more than 7 laws that are completely stuck. And I'll give you one of the most important law, because we're discussing about the evolvement, is the introduction to Lebanon to the Mercosur agreement, specifically for the Latin America. Until today it's blocked in the parliament. I will go positively, saying that we had elections, disregarding about the result, good or bad, social society, political, but we had election, which is good. So we have a new parliament, so let's take this positively and say that we hope that the new parliament will help us to evolve the system specifically to have these new laws that will help us specifically in the legal system. So I will go positively while noting that we had a bad experience into the last parliament.
what is required in terms of activities, infrastructure, connectivity, so that we can get those 30,000 CEOs to come back to Lebanon with their know-how or with their money and get engaged more with our economy? Thank you.
Thank you, Fadi. I know that you're asking the question and you do have the answer. I'm sorry, but I will have to be extremely realistic on that. We meet a lot of people, we meet a lot of success stories, we meet a lot, everyone wants to come to Lebanon, everyone wants to visit Lebanon, most of them want to have a week or something. But when we dig into further, would they come to invest into Lebanon, would they come to put their money? Unfortunately, the answer is more negative than positive. And I will tell you why. Let's put into numbers. You know that into the world that 75, 90s, it's during that period where we had the largest number of created companies in Lebanon happened during 75 and 90s. And if we ask ourselves why, is because during that period, we had a very high liquidity ratio. We had less than $500 million debt. But at the same time, we had a return on investment into the private sector that was going between 20 to 30%. So we had a high sovereign risk, but at the same time, we had a huge return on investment. So everyone wanted to come to Lebanon because there was liquidity and a huge return on investment, but at the same time facing a high sovereign risk. Today, when we meet investors, they tell us that you still have the same sovereign risk. It's true that there is no war, but we have a cold war. We have 4 wars around us. So you have still a sovereign risk based on the political and the regional environment. But unfortunately, the return on investment have dropped from 15 to 20 to 0 to 5. So giving the return a low return on investment and a high sovereign risk, unfortunately, the investors are not anyway keen into investing in Lebanon. Our answer would be, and my answer is very clear, that when you invest to Lebanon, you're not investing in the 50 billion country, but you're investing for a region. You are investing for the Middle East. You are investing for the reconstruction of Syria. You are investing for the reconstruction of Libya. So Lebanon should be viewed as a hub. We should not just view Lebanon as a direct return on investment, but on a strategic place where from Lebanon you can play the economic platform for the region. And very proudly, we have also yesterday a delegation coming from Singapore. And I was really amazed by these people coming to start in Lebanon a company just into the e-government that will be managed in Lebanon by a Singaporean person for the region, because they took already challenges in Saudi Arabia, in Oman, and into Kuwait. So again, to have investors come and invest directly in Lebanon would be difficult unless they invest into existing company, financial sectors, construction, existing corporate family company, one. Second one, let's not forget the title of our conference, PPP. We have a huge opportunity that is coming. We have a PPP, we have a Cedars agreement, so 11 billions that will come directly to PPP. So this would be extremely important opportunity where the Lebanese diaspora is very keen to come and bid. And the third one will be the platform, knowing that our economy is struggling. So let's not hide behind it, but we're still surviving and we will.
Thank you, Doctor.
Wissam Ghurra. Dr. Zmakhul, do you really think in an economy of, as you were saying, around 70% of family business, is there a real place for entrepreneurs, or are they considered a threat to the family, to the business owners in a way, and they are not very welcome in these companies?
You know, to be realistic, you have both. First, based on the numbers of family business, you know, and specifically on SMEs, when we took the Lebanese number and we compared it to the States, we found out that even the percentage of SMEs in the States is even larger than in Lebanon. And if you take the percentage of the family-owned company in Lebanon and you compare it to France, you will find out that we are quite the same percentage on family thing. However, does the family, all the families in Lebanon are already building their new corporate governance to continue into the third and fourth generation? That's a question mark. You have some, and I will not name them, that are already ready, where the family members are part of the board, and they're hiring new entrepreneurs, new CEOs, and they're trying to take their company to the different stage, and those will pass. And you have others that are, I mean, where you have still the 80% guys that are still struggling to keep the power and we're not open. So again, as entrepreneurs, as businesses, we have to find out which are the good ones and the bad ones. So you have both. I will tell you, you have 50-50, not to be more optimistic, but having 50 opportunities are quite good. So again, I do encourage entrepreneurs to start and to sell their idea within an existing company, or to form what we call SBU, which is a strategic business unit that is being within companies. And that's a new era we have in Lebanon. You have a big, I would say, offshore or holding companies and small sub-units with independent P&L, where you have this entrepreneur that comes and he has his own company within the large one with a kind of financing. And if we talk outside the conference, I can give you a lot of names that are ready and looking for entrepreneurs.
This is the biggest asset that we have right now to develop. I'm a petroleum engineer. I work for two companies about 50 years, Bechtel and KBR. I've been all over the world in oil and gas sector. This resource is very important. I don't see many Lebanese as aware of it, that if we develop this sector and put all our politics aside, we will be rich people. We'll pay all our debts, you know. You created jobs for everybody in Lebanon, using the gas as a primary industry or secondary industry. Mushtaqat al-ghaz there is 5,000 mushtaqat al-ghaz, you know. It will employ most every Lebanese in Lebanon. And the second thing, you have to create a security for people to come overseas and live with schooling, residency. They have to have security here. People living overseas that are not, even American companies will not come here unless they are secure. They need security. So this is my point. I haven't seen much conversation, all this LDE today about gas and oil, what we are doing right now. I know we start to drill oil in 2019, but we have really to put our politics aside and start really be serious about it.
I was laughing because, thank you very much for mentioning it. You know, this reminds me about the Lebanese dream. You know that as Lebanese people, we are all dreamers, and we all dream of having this beautiful country, and you have this full transparency. So we all dreamt about the oil and gas, and to be is something extremely, as you said, extremely important, because in case we become really exporter, this would change the whole economy. But at the same time, I will put again my realistic hat and tell you that it's been 5 years, and I'll be a little bit pessimistic about that, to tell you why. Because unfortunately, when we knew it's in the 70s that we have oil and gas in Lebanon, and we tried to start to propose it since a couple of years, and it took us more than 5 years just to try to collect the bids, and the bids that we got at that time, we had our two major competitors that are Cyprus and Israel that have finished digging and starting exporting. So we know that in case it took us 5 years just to collect the data, so we're not very optimistic about when we'll start digging and why we'll extract the oil, knowing that you need between 8 and 10 years based on the studies to get the first penny while you start exporting. So we know that it's a medium to long-term process, and you need a completely stability. Yes, it's an important point of strength. Yes, we dream about it, but unfortunately, as the Lebanese-based company, we cannot base our expectation on that, in the sense that we know that the liquidity based on that will take a lot of time. On another side, we have to be realistic that we might go into international arbitration, because you know that even if we find oil and gas, and we expect that when we will find oil and gas more than oil, we'll have our neighbors on the fourth frontiers who will first go into the United Nations, say that the origin is in their countries. So we expect that as business persons. And you know that such court will take more than 5 to 10 years to decide if the core of this digging is in Lebanon or in Israel or in Cyprus. So yes, it is an opportunity. Yes, we hope to have it, but unfortunately as business person we cannot count a lot on that, and I would not promise to my people that it will do a change within the short and medium run. because you know that we're living extremely difficult times today, economic times. You know that the social crisis and the economic crisis in Lebanon and the region is not easy. So we have to be very cautious not to promise a lot of undeliverable things. However, we have to work on it. We are confident that the newly formed government will have this as a priority. We are confident that the new parliament will work on that, but we're not confident yet that we will benefit from it before 10 years at least. So this is why I did not know that, but I fully agree that it can be a huge opportunity. So, but I wanted to stress on the private sector and on the synergy. But thank you for noticing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm going to allow this last question and then we will move on because we are running out of time.
Thank you, Dr. Fuad, but I wish to add something very, very important. It's not our right today to bargain on the future, on the oil, because the oil does not belong to us. It belongs to our children, to the next generations, usually. And we are bargaining on something which don't belong to us at all. We are not in right to pay our debt from the oil in the sea today. This is it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Zmakhul. كنا بنحب أكيد تضل معنا بس feel free whenever you. Sorry, تفضل.
Antoine Hkayim, a businessman from France, Dr. Zmakhul. We have something very important in the Lebanon, because you talked about how to delegate within the company. I think it's of course there are people delegating, but still this system is not going very, very spread in all over, I believe. The second thing I want to express myself about the energy. Unfortunately, we took a very, very big delay in exploiting. I believe the new technology, the high technology today, is the renewable energy, which is very fast, and it might cost maybe less than the exploitation. So I don't know if there is some kind of how to say awareness about this. Okay.
2 minutes just to answer. Mr. Mnasta, thank you very much. No one is bargaining. I mean, not us anymore. I mean, the government, yeah, maybe. I mean, this is why we're realistic and we're not discussing. So the bargaining, I fully agree that this is for the people. And but you know that when they divide it into blocks, and the 9 blocks, it was 100% political, not to say family things and how it was divided, not to say that the blocks, that number 9 is not even sure that is for Lebanon, but it is a typical thing. Mr. Haim, thank you for asking the question, but I want to highlight something because I think that you are a living example of a Lebanese investor, you personally, because I know you and we went together to Mexico to invest there together, but I like to share it if you don't mind, that you are the typical Lebanese that have succeeded abroad and that succeeded in many fields, and we even discussed lately that you want to come back to Lebanon and to invest in your hometown. You will give the details in case you want, but I think this is a beautiful example of someone who have succeeded and want to come back to Lebanon to invest in his roots, disregarding on the return. The idea was just honestly to invest and to get something. So I think this is a major applaud for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zmakhul.
This is why we are here, isn't it? I mean, these are the successes that we want.
We're going to move now back to the banking sector in Lebanon. As we all know, this sector has proved to be very solid along the years, and especially in the last few years. After the civil war, the banking sector was able to grow rapidly and on a solid base, and was always supported by the governance, by its strong corporate governance and the guidance of the central bank. Despite all the turmoil that Lebanon witnessed from the Israeli wars of 1996 and 2006, the assassination of Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri, the local instability caused by 2 years of political impasse, and most importantly, the unsteadiness caused by the international crisis of 2008, the Lebanese banks were able to overcome it all and have shown a healthy growth stream. Some of the Lebanese banks expanded abroad in Sudan, Syria, Iraq, Egypt, African countries, and even Turkey. Today, the political instability in the region that followed the Arab Spring and the financial difficulties in some countries have affected currencies like Egypt and Turkey and most of the African countries, which slowed their economical growth. We're going to start by our first discussion is about offering the platform for banking and investment sectors to create proper coordination mechanism and to envision the importance of the diaspora beyond remittance like it is today. And it can be done also by helping the diaspora abroad. We will take the example of the African market since we have Karim with us and Dr. Christian. Karim, what do you think, how do you think we can preserve the Lebanese interest in the African market?
Thank you, Marwan. I'm not from the banking sector, but I've worked a lot with banks. I will just start by highlighting that I have lived 25 years in the African continent. I've got raised in Côte d'Ivoire, and I lived the last 15 years in Egypt. Côte d'Ivoire is the main pillar of the West Africa, and Egypt is the main pillar of the North African countries. I got the chance to witness in Egypt when I went in 2002 really the evolution and growth of the Egyptian market despite the last years of revolution and the hiccups that happened. Today, by setting up our base in Beirut, we would like to promote and be a bridge to the Lebanese investors to go to this market. If we look a bit on the Lebanese interest in Africa, I can see that, as Dr. Fouad Zmokhel said, that there is a huge competition going on now. The Moroccan, you have the French going on very aggressively, you have the Chinese, you have everyone. I've attended several conferences. The last one was Business Africa in Sharm el-Sheikh last December. And you could see a huge willingness of all the African countries to consolidate together, to step on the right foot and to move ahead. Unfortunately, I've seen the Lebanese business, the market share, minimizing with time, and this is, I felt, can be a threat for the Lebanese interest in the future. So what should be done here? There has to be a conscious, whether starting from the Lebanese government and maybe also in the other Lebanese diaspora willing to expand into other markets, that Africa is a future market. It's a young population. It's a huge geographical size. Most of the countries are not yet fully exploited, and lots of opportunities are coming in this market. So we have to have a conscious that Africa is the future. What are we going to do in order to penetrate these countries? We have been, as the Lebanese diaspora, we have been a lead long ago in the 70s into setting up lots of businesses in that Africa platform. Today, we are losing a bit on the track. We cannot keep on managing the same way that we have been managing 30 years or 40 years ago. Things are changing. What do we need to do? I recommend that there should be kind of a platform initiated from Lebanon. And that platform should include all the stakeholders. We're talking about banks, we're talking about economic affairs, we're talking about the private sector, we're talking about all these players. We had 2 successful, or more than 2 successful banks that really managed to penetrate the African markets. We have Bank Audi and Blanc Bank in Egypt. We have Bank Biblos in other African countries. We should have more banks moving ahead with the Lebanese businesses, and we should all work in the business ecosystem to move all together. We cannot anymore penetrate those markets individually. And our colleague just mentioned it. Today, whether I've seen some of the French, I've been active and participating in some of the French initiative with Business France and BPI France. France is moving all together. They have a public investment bank, they have an advisor, Business France company moving ahead, they have all the exporters, all the stakeholders are here, and they are all moving together toward moving to these new markets. So I think here there has to be an initiative taken from the Lebanese country, whereby we have all the stakeholders and we're all moving towards a new direction.
Thank you, Karim. Dr. Christian, what, in your opinion and experience, can be done to enhance the relationship with the African continent?
Okay. Thank you, Marwan. Well, actually, Karim facilitated, my talk now, because he just gave me a very good introduction about, the potential in the African continent. I've been working in the African continent with 50 African member states, and someone at the level of the financial institutions, and now I'm handling the international cooperation. Well, actually, the potential is huge. Huge, huge in the African continent, especially with the new developments all over the world. We know that there is a global recession everywhere. And we have to focus on where is our comparative really advantage. The comparative advantage of the Lebanese, the way I see it, is in Africa. The whole world even is turning into the African continent and facilitate all the tools and instruments to go into there. So I think, and I just join, Karim, what he just said, that there should be like a vision from the country, and they start even from the education. Our children doesn't know anything about Africa. Unfortunately, it was only in the 70s there was a very good actually relationship between the Lebanese and the African continent. They were sitting there having generation after generation, very good businessman. Whenever I go, they know that I am of Lebanese origin. They said me, okay, we have a lot of Lebanese, investment in our countries, but the way I see it, actually, we are really decreasing in terms of appearance in the African continent. And I think this is the way why this has done, because maybe, I don't know, the government no longer is looking at the African continent as a very important partner, where the real economic growth of the Lebanese will be there. We are Phoenicians, we know how to trade, we know how to actually market our product there. The only thing that we need to do is to get all the stakeholders on board, starting from the governments, the entrepreneurs, the capacity building people, and we have to be serious about it. Otherwise, we will lose our seat there. And the way to do it, we have a lot of instruments and tools we can use it. We are seeing the Chinese, for example, how they go and penetrate the African market. Let's learn from them. They go with all the tools. They go with the contractor who is having, a very low labor. They are going with the financial institution who is supporting them, okay, at zero interest rates, and so forth. They have a vision of getting, marketing their products, which is now in surplus in the country, whatever is happening. So I think we as Lebanese of historical ties with the African continent, we have to reposition ourselves. And we have to understand that in collaboration with all the stakeholders, we'll be there and take our seat back. the way, the place I'm coming from, it showed me in terms of numbers, what are really the potentials in this one. I give you just a small example, coming from an institution that has 50 African member states. Nowadays, we are doing very good programs, for example, for the Egyptians. We have supported one Egyptian entrepreneurs to go into the African continent with a deal of $2 billion. So you can imagine, if the Lebanese are coming on board as a stakeholder, a major stakeholder, and would love, we as IntraAfrican Bank, for example, to work with the Lebanese because they know the business, they understand the business. And this is like a call for all the Lebanese, come back to Africa. And this is where your comparative advantage is. This is where your competitive advantage is. You have a lot of things to sell into the African continent. This country can just be having a boom in its economic growth if they follow suit. Look at the African continent, your partner, the real partner. It's actually the Western world, the northern part of the world is no longer actually a competitive a partner as used to be. Now it is the time to call to Africa. The whole world is going into Africa. I don't need to elaborate further on that one. On actually the instruments, how we can do it. For example, I'm coming today to invite you even. We have, if you can just allow me to give you a video of just 1 minute, if you can display it, on a forthcoming big event that is coming actually end of December, 11 to 17 of December. It's happening in Egypt, where we are inviting big entrepreneurs to come into the African country, from the African countries. We have 50 African member states who will be having a very big exhibition. We are expecting around 70,000 visitors to come, and in parallel there will going to be a very big conference, and this is a back-to-back to a major conference that is happening on a yearly basis in Egypt, which is called Africa 2018. I hope if you can just display. This is the Intra-African Trade before we get the voice, and it's done in collaboration with the African Union, ITC, and major stakeholders. And this is, I think, the right platform. This is the first in a row that the bank is organizing. I hope there is the voice. There is no voice, unfortunately. So this is the expected, actually, deals, 25 billion, US dollars to come on board. We have 70,000 visitors coming from buyers and sellers. It will be attended by the head of states. And also there will be a major conference and workshop to attract also the capacity building and make very good deals. And the bank in its position actually is working on three instruments. The first one is to finance the trade and projects related to trade. This is number one, an investment in the African continent. The second thing is to provide guarantees and comfort to go into the African continent. The third one has to do with advisory service and capital markets. So I think, we are providing a solution from A to Z to any stakeholder who would like to come into the African continent. And I know for sure, because I am one of you, I know how the Lebanese can come, and efficiently and quick, because they have already historical ties in the African continent. They are not new to the African continent. So I invite you to come and look and have a vision in the African continent. And this is one of the tools, you can use it as IntraAfrican Bank. Thank you.
Thank you. The second part of our discussion is activation of the model of public-private partnership and the engagement of experienced diaspora corporation and the pressing potential investments such as electricity, water, education, transportation, and waste management, etc., and many other fields. I'm not going to talk about I'm not going to talk a lot about PPP. I'm just going to define it. PPP are long-term agreements between governments and private companies aiming at taking advantage of the private sector efficiency, expertise, and financial resources. Private sectors means skills, technical assistance, funds, and risk absorption. PPP helps also in decreasing unemployment and brain drain. PPP can also attract foreign capital. As you know, in Lebanon, the public debt reached 130% of the GDP, and the annual deficit is around $4 billion. It will be difficult to the Lebanese government to start with these projects. The Lebanese government started in 2000 by creating the Higher Council for Privatization. It was supposed to adopt the PPP law in 2007 at the time of Paris III. It was adopted in August 2017. PPP, of course, would reduce the government burden to subsidize unprofitable public entities. The bottom line is, in order to invest in PPP, you need a positive cash flow. And here, Mr. Adel Afyouni can help us or guide us on how can Lebanon attract foreign investment and what can be done in that field.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So as mentioned earlier, I think I'm going to switch to how the diaspora can actually play a role in the economic revival of our country. As we just said, PPP is an important new tool that is available and that is putting this theme on the map again. But if we take a step back, we all know, and I think the elephant in every room is that we have an economic situation which is quite challenging, no growth, poor infrastructure, and very high and unsustainable levels of government debt. Therefore, the government is soon to run out of ammunition to stimulate the economy, and that's where the importance of private capital becomes crucial. Historically, if we look at Lebanon Inc., and I think Fuad mentioned that earlier, whether it's public or private sector, they've been mostly relying on debt and much less on equity. The government is mostly basically financing projects from its own budget and is financing itself through the public markets, Eurobonds or Lebanese pound T-bills, to the levels where, as we said earlier, now we're reaching 150 or 60% of GDP almost, which makes us one of the most indebted countries in the world. Also, the private sector doesn't open its capital and try to keep basically the equity constrained within family members or founders and rely mostly on credit lines from banks. So I think fundamentally the country has to step into effectively the 21st century and change the way it funds its growth and its economic activity. But also there is necessity because, as we said earlier, it's unsustainable to keep on building public debt and private debt. Hence where FDIs play an important role. In every emerging market country where I've worked, FDI is probably one of the most important items in the economic agenda. And most of those countries go outside and try to raise capital and attract investors to come and invest equity, not only debt. In Lebanon, we are very lucky because we have a very large pool of wealth within our diaspora. And actually that diaspora is loyal. I mean, most of you here who came from abroad to meet and connect and get more familiar, but also most of the Lebanese diaspora sends money from abroad, and that's a huge advantage to a lot of other countries. But unfortunately, most of the money we sent historically is either deposit to banks, which is great, but that again goes back into the debt system, not the equity, or people buy real estate, and at best they team up or partner with a friend of theirs who's opening a restaurant or a small enterprise. This is not FDI in the sense that is scalable. We cannot grow FDIs through this mechanism. Therefore, we need to attract FDIs, which we've established, but we need to institutionalize the way FDIs come. And this is my second basically important message, is to institutionalize FDIs, and to scale it up, we need to have the platform and the infrastructure. And that's a joint effort by private sector, mostly the financial institutions here, and the diaspora to set up what has been done in a lot of other emerging countries where we operate, which is basically funds and institutional investors that can channel FDIs. If I'm an expat who lives abroad and I want to invest in Lebanon, again, either I know someone or I just send my money to the bank, because there's no diversified and structured vehicle that allows us to invest in the country without being experts. Because you have financial FDIs, which is pure financial investment. We don't have to be expert in oil and gas to put money in oil and gas, but we need the vehicle to be able to rely on a professional institution. And I think that's important for the local banks, local financial institutions, also the government, to work together on encouraging the institutionalization of FDIs and the setup of more funds. And with the SADR conference and the PPP law and some of the projects coming on stream, the supply side is actually coming in, because now we have a pipeline of interesting investment opportunities that is available and that needs increased equity and capital, including from abroad, given the scale. I mean, we're talking 17 billion, phase one is maybe 11, the PPP is 7 billion out of that. So there's a lot of money needed. Not only debt, not only grants, which has been committed, but also pure equity. And this amount, which could be 2, 3, 4 billion of equity, will never come unless we have institutional vehicles and funds to channel that. That's why we call on basically setting up this type of vehicles to attract the money. Now, what's the role of the government and the local institution in that process? As we've seen it again in other similar markets, it's very important for the government to support that and to provide the incentives. Could be incentives through the tax and basically a system. It could be incentives by seeding some of those funds or bringing in some of the government assets into those funds, so the government becomes a co-investor or a partner in some of those institutions. But it's very important to effectively have the sponsorship as part of the agenda to attract FDIs. And one last point is, again, people have to come in, but they have to be able to exit. So people don't come and stay forever in an investment. Therefore, it's very important, and I know this is on the agenda, but it's super slow here, to set up a proper, I mean, we have now a capital markets authority, we have a stock exchange which is supposed to be privatized. The central bank has done tremendous efforts in attracting investors to the country on the debt side, but also they're setting out an electronic platform that will encourage investors effectively to buy into equity and then sell out. And the liquidity is a very important aspect to attract FDIs. And I think we're on the right track, but we need to speed the process.
Thank you, Adel. Thank you very much.
I wish to present myself, Antoine Menassa. I'm actually president of an association in Paris, which is ALPHA, Homme d'Affaires Libanais de France, and WLCU World Chairperson Economic Committee. Thank you, Madam, for talking about Africa. I born in Africa also. I'm son of Dakar, Senegal, but I'm living in France actually. And thank you, Mr. Afiouni, for all what you have said already. What I want to say now, this is our praise every year, every month, every day. We are in LDE for the 5th time. I don't know if you remember 2 years ago, we have with Alpha and Australia, Mr. Fadi Zoui, ALCCI, Australian Lebanese Chamber of Commerce, with Brazil, with Canada, we have signed in front of Mr. Basil and the Minister of Economy at that time, Mr. Hakim, what we call the creation of an international chamber house, which will be held in Beirut. And from this house, it will be for the in and for out. International Chamber House was born in Australia, and the same system, Australian system, wanted to be adopted here. We only signed paper. The Minister Basil signed, Minister of Economy signed, and that's all. We have no continuation. The second years, why we had no continuation? Because a lot of chambers were unhappy. The second years, which was the last years, we met 14 chambers. I don't know if you remember, we were upstairs. And the Minister of Economy has changed. It was Dr. Raed Khouri, and the Minister was there. And the 14 of us, which was Chamber of Oman, Chamber of Arabi Saudi Lebanese, the Lebanese Mexican Chamber of Commerce, the Lebanese Alpha, Homme d'Affaires Libanais de France, etc., We have also signed a memorandum of understanding to meet and to create a platform in Lebanon also to avoid the bad investment in Lebanon, to give some conseil, etc., etc. And we have only signed. Until now, we never met once. So I'm really unhappy today, and I'm very, very sad, and I'm going to cry, because you are repeating what we have already said last year and year before. And next year, somebody will stay here and we repeat the same thing. This is our major problem today, and I wish, sorry to say it, but we can't continue this way.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Manassa.
Can I quickly
Can I?
I want to comment on
Yeah, sure.
Please.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Manassa,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manassa. Thank you, panelists.
I just
Dr. Christian wants
yeah,
to
I
comment,
just want
please.
to comment on. Thank you for your observation and your disappointment. You know, because this type of disappointment we are facing it every day. Okay, it's not only on the level of International Chamber of Commerce, but what I realized, because also the bank is a member in many, you know, Chamber of Commerce and things like that, and we see the conflict that is happening always, because unfortunately when we start to create this initiative at the beginning, you know, it's a very bright idea, but unfortunately it's at the concept stage only. I think the only thing that is missing, and when we say that the devil lies in the details, when you go into the implementation of this type of chambers, I think we have to take care that it has to be a win-win situation, and the carrot is there for everyone to activate this type of chambers. If there is no really the carrot where everyone has the incentive to make this type of you know, organization, association, call it whatsoever, is not there, so things are not actually sustainable. So this is the way I see it. Maybe, I don't know, I wasn't in the details of this one, but I highly encourage you to continue in this initiative and see how you can get all the stakeholders to have an interest in making this institution or this association or whatever you want to call it, or this chamber, okay, to make it active. Unless everyone has an interest, because at the end of the day, this is run on a business basis, on a business mentality, and we Lebanese, we know what is business. So unfortunately, we don't have to keep it at the level of a dream or ideal. It has to be actually really well thought of, and the instruments are there, and the incentive really for everyone in the chamber to continue on this one. This is just a small piece of advice, because I've been into negotiations of so many chambers, okay, that fall apart immediately after its creation. Thank you.
And I also want to add one quick thing is, I think this should be driven mostly by the private sector and private investors, and the government will follow. Like FDIs is an initiative, obviously the government can promote, but today there are opportunities. If there is an airport to invest in, or a toll road, or a power station, they will need money, and this will come from private sector, and the private sector should lead the way, and private investors.
Very true. Very true.
I just would like also to confirm the point of Mr. Manassa. I am an active member in the Egyptian Lebanese Businessman Association in Cairo, and I've been for the last 13 years in that association, and it's a very active association there. When I came a few months ago to Lebanon to set a base, like جذع الشجرة تكون هون, and the branch to be outside, I've adhered to two different business associations where also, unfortunately, we've paid the money and everything, and honestly, I did not meet once. So this is sad. This is sad. But I think we need to be stubborn on this, and something has to happen. We need to change this approach, because if in Lebanon they do not look at their interest, who else will be looking at their interest? In the diaspora, we are more يعني, ننزعج بالأمور أكتر. We are more looking, no, we should be better, we should be better. We should be able to change something here. And I think that there are lots of people that are having a great vision, and it's just a matter that we need, I think, to find the right partners on this one.
I would just like to add a little parenthesis. Especially we spoke about the FDIs and Africa opportunity, and we have a lot of fragmented resources and individualistic approaches in Lebanon. That's one of the issues, but challenges do exist everywhere, including in Africa. I'm newly born to Africa since 5 years, coming from Germany, working in financial services, insurance, and solar and renewable energy. And one of the issues, very important, the competition, for example. Mr. Karim mentioned that the Chinese, the French, the Turks, they come with guarantees mechanism, financial guarantees mechanism that guarantees their FDIs into Africa, for example. And the Lebanese investors do lack that. And they go and make alliances with international mechanisms to make guarantees for their FDIs. Another point is you have countries like Morocco, Qatar, or elsewhere where they have financial centers, official offshore financial centers, where they gather these funds, these equity fund managers, the reinsurance platforms, and they target the potential of the Lebanese diaspora, whether in Africa or elsewhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wissam Ghurra. Mr. Afyouni, as we're saying that the equity side is still very small in Lebanon. Do you think the alternative is investing in Lebanese Eurobonds, and does the diaspora invest enough in these Eurobonds, and is it a good alternative, or it's not a good one?
No, I mean, I think it's a question of risk return and diversification. So there is obviously, we've seen it, there is appetite for Eurobonds, and there is interest from the diaspora in the Eurobonds market, as well as there is in the deposits in the banks, which are kind of a consequence of the Lebanese debt. So there is interest from the diaspora, as we've witnessed it, for fixed income type of exposure to Lebanon, and that's fair. But my point is, it also has part of the asset allocation of the diaspora would fairly be also allocated to equity if we can offer those opportunities. Today, large investors in the diaspora, just like Mr. Manassa mentioned, do invest in equity outside Lebanon because there are interesting opportunities available, and Lebanon has become mostly a fixed income destination for them. There's no reason why we cannot diversify that, because the country needs equity investment, not only debt investment.
Do we have questions? I think we're done here. Yes, please.
My name is Vaskin Kavlakian. I was ambassador of Lebanon to Kazakhstan just 2 weeks ago. Recently I came back. So I just give you the example of Kazakhstan, which is a new country, new republic, just 27 years ago. Here I notice, over there, I notice the professionalism working. A new state, and I'm comparing it with Lebanon. Here in Lebanon, you were just mentioning that central bank is encouraging FDIs, etc., etc. But here we have a lot of things going on within ministries. Nobody knows exactly who is the responsible of this issue or the other. In Kazakhstan, they have a ministry called Ministry of Investment and Development. Its sole responsibility is to attract FDIs. And they have a huge database. What do they need? And because of the economic crisis recently, all the projects they are offering are based on BOT. So you bring your money, you build it, operate it, and transfer it later on. So why we're not doing this? Why we're not going to a further professional step and establish our own Ministry of Investment. This is my own proposal, let's say. Thank you.
Thank you.